What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Montana Method Podcast. Your co-host, as always, Nelson Rodriguez Jr., author and writer of the Montana Method. Today, I have a very special guest, someone I hold near and dear to my heart. He's family, literally. A person who has seen and done many things in this world, and I have been very blessed to have been able to learn from his wisdom, his friendship, his guidance, and many other things that we will get into today. My godfather, none other than extraordinaire Cristian Lopez.
I've been out here hustling all my life. Every day we get into it. Really out here in these streets. That's day and night. Like there's nothing to it. When I was going through it, dog, I never got your call. I never asked for nothing, no. But now I want it all. I promise I'ma do it. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags.
Padrino, ¿qué bolón?
How you doing?
Good, good. You like the Scarface game, huh?
I love this. I love this.
Está de big guy.
Yeah.
Está bueno. Yeah, it's a big upgrade. It's good to feel and see my own evolution, you know? It's really cool. Like documenting just doing like un invento on a little reel on a brand new page on Instagram to the audio version of the podcast now. Full-blown studio, production, producer, you know, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, really proud, man. Looks
Thanks.
nice.
Thank you. You kind of inspired it, though. You started it. You started the YouTube stuff before I did, you know? You did?
Well, like I say, I've got a YouTube channel. I don't consider myself a YouTuber, right?
Fair enough.
But, yeah.
Fair enough. Well, this will be a good chance to collaborate. Maybe you get some more people pumping on the channel. So
Awesome.
Okay, definitely.
Yeah.
So you're my godfather. We've known each other going on a decade now. Wow.
Yeah.
Time flies, man. Holy cow. So we met back in our direct sales days when we were selling telecommunication services. We became good friends. And then over time, I decided, for those of you that don't know, I'm a follower of the Lucumi Santeria religion. And I decided in a very organic way that Cristian should be my godfather, which for those of you that don't know, in our religion, a godfather is he's a mix between a messenger and a spiritual guide, I'd say. And it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. I consider you a big brother. I consider you somewhat of an uncle, father figure, and a very good friend. So let's get into, obviously I know everything that's transpired after I met you. And I know a little bit about your upbringing, but so you're born and raised in Miami.
Born in New Jersey. Union City, New Jersey. And then when I was around 4 years old, we came here to Miami. Kind of a cool story around how we got here, right? First 4 years of my life in Jersey, I was always sick. Always sick, man. All the time. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. Doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. I mean, it was just one of those, you know what happens when you're Cuban and stuff is going on and nobody can figure it out. You know exactly what happens at that point.
Yeah.
So we went, actually, I was too little to know what was going on, but my parents and my grandparents, everybody, brought all their friends together, and I don't remember right now if it was a misa or if it was Santero or whatever it was, but the point was that they said, you need to take him out of here. This, whether it's climate or whatever it is, this area is not for him. You get out of here, you go farther south, you're going to be good. Funny thing is, the next medical visit, because I was in and out of hospitals all the time. I mean, it was a mess, right? So finally they go to like this specialist, right? Pulmonary specialist, and because I was always sick, and especially it was always, like bronchitis and this and that. And, they go to the specialist, and you know what he tells them? He says, you should move down south, because maybe that'll change. Maybe the whole, weather thing will do him some good. So it was kind of funny, because it was like science and then faith kind of both came together. And, at that point, I was the center of the family. I was the not the newborn, but I was the baby pretty much.
Right.
You know, up to 4 years old. So the whole family moved to Florida. It wasn't just me, my mom, my dad. It was my grandfather, my grandmother, my great aunt, you know, my great uncle. I don't remember if he got here now. He may have died at that point. But anyway, whole family came down here. And that's where the Miami story begins. That's clearly from there on. So I've been here since I was 4 years old.
Cool. Okay. So I know also, so you grew up here. Obviously, you grew up in the Marimbero era.
Oh, yeah. I got to see a lot of that while I was in school and getting, you know, and kind of growing up. Absolutely. It was the golden age of Miami, as many like to call it.
Definitely. For those of you that don't speak Spanish, Marimbero means quite literally drug trafficker. Anyway, so
actually, marimbero is actually the guy that plays the marimba.
Well, yeah,
right.
There we go.
But it comes from the joke that, you know, these guys would. I mean, it was very opulent back in the 80s. The guys had a lot of money. A lot of money that went into the economy and everything else. And so, you know, imagine somebody invites you to their house for a party, and you get to their house, and it's like a huge mansion or a mini mansion, and they've got a band, a whole 13-piece orchestra playing, right? And so they'd look at the guy and go, "Man, what do you do for a living?" And he's like, "I'm the guy that plays the marimba. I'm the marimbero." And that kind of stayed, you know. And it's very colloquial. When you go outside, people that were from Miami that aren't Cuban know what that means. But other than that, if you're not Cuban and you're not from Miami, you wouldn't know what a marimbero was. You don't use the term,
yeah. You would say naco or something.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So the 80s, and then you started getting involved in the religion when you were a teenager, right?
Yeah, I got involved in the religion probably. I mean, I had been exposed my whole life directly and indirectly. And, you know, back then it's very different than now where it's just kind of like commonplace or whatever.
Right.
Back then it was
like some underground stuff.
It was underground, yeah. It was frowned upon by those that didn't and hidden by those that did. It was kind of like a garage religion, right? You kept your faith quiet, and they were still Catholic in every sense of the word,
right.
But they also had their superstitions and all their other things that they would do that, you know, and since then it's become very, very public and almost completely separated. I mean, some people still hold them just out of tradition, hold both faiths, you know, hand in hand. I think there was a moment where I kind of digressed and was just like hardcore, but I also embrace my Cuban tradition and the fact of kind of having them both around.
We were chased out of Cuba. I mean, everybody was chased out of Cuba, but the religious people specifically, that was a communist. I mean, they were atheists, right? And so they were chased out of Cuba.
Actually, they were probably the only faith that stuck around because the churches were closed, but they really let the Santeria practitioners practice. They didn't have
interesting.
They wouldn't.
Fidel never tried to stop them.
No, but what did happen eventually was that it became parts of it. The tentacles of the Communist Party ran very deep into it, right? So imagine if you're people of influence and you have the ear of foreigners and you have the ear of diplomats and you have the ear of people that are coming from all over the world because for whatever reason, you know, it had a fame of you know, being able to get things done and helping people, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that was definitely something the intelligence community was interested in, right? So it kind of worked in their favor, and I'm not saying that they didn't sometimes, you know, but it was basically the only thing that was pretty much allowed throughout the whole
because
time.
it was to their benefit.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Funny enough, though, he, of course, typical hypocritical communist guy, right? Fidel, he always had the prenda, you know, if you saw it or sometimes, and it's been documented that he went to Africa to do some work, some religious stuff, so he was a believer. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard something similar. I had heard that he had gone to Angola
Yeah,
and that
yeah,
when
yeah.
he came back from Angola, he was dressed all in white, and he had like beads and stuff or
all
whatever.
that stuff, yeah.
And so it's always been pretty much known and run through the circles that he has like a squadron almost of people that their job every day is wake up, make sure everything's right. If they gotta make it right, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So since we're talking to an English-speaking audience, which never happens when I bring up the topic of my faith or religion, so it's interesting how not most people, but some people nowadays still it's more mainstream, so it doesn't have that stigma anymore. I wouldn't think so. It's a little more mainstream, especially in Miami. But there's still those one or two people who confuse it with like witchcraft and that kind of stuff, and you know. When do you think that happened, where it kind of like that side of it was like, oh, now I understand this isn't like some devil worshipping garbage?
I think, well, first of all, just the exposure and the sheer size of it, right?
True, yeah.
But I think maybe somewhere in the 90s.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
It wasn't just us anymore, right? They came out, the internet was booming, and I remember on the internet, man, I was like the policeman, right? I was like, it was crazy. I was like trolling if I saw somebody, because I took it very, very seriously. I didn't want secrets getting out, and so it was a funny time. But aside from that, we're not the only faith that is a diaspora religion, right? Ours is very unique, but Brazil has something that's very similar and very different aspects, not just kind of a whole bunch of them, right? Yeah. And so there's a whole bunch. I could go down a list that would take us forever to talk about.
Right.
But then the term ATR started coming around, African traditional religions, and so that also came with a movement for the African American that wanted to kind of find their roots again and be very proud of what their roots are. I mean, you got to think, the slaves that came to Cuba came from very specific areas, right? And the ones that went to Brazil came from very similar areas, but inverted, right? So that's where you kind of get the differences. But when you have people that are wanting to get back in touch with their identity and their faith and everything, well, that was perfect. That was all happening at that moment. So and I think also because African Americans at that time were more secure in their current position in society and in the U.S. And what I mean is, I'm born here, right? I served in the military. I'm not scared of anything or anyone or whatever. Right. Granted that even when I'm in a business setting, I don't talk about it unless somebody mentions it, right? Because I don't want any preconceptions to ruin the business deal that I'm about to do or what I'm doing or whatever, right? But I just think, they were born citizens of this country, already had generations in here, and so I have every right to talk about this and be proud of it and this and that and whatever. Where the others, they were immigrants, some legal, some maybe illegal, even though Cubans usually, it's pretty easy to get legalized. But anyway, some legal, some maybe illegal, some not wanting really to have too much attention on them. And so it kind of went with the whole keep it in the garage, don't talk about it in school or whatever. Right. But then you have other people that are very proud to talk about it, and it has to do with them getting back in touch with their roots. And then everybody else jumped on the bandwagon as well and said, hell yeah, let's talk about it, you know? Yeah. And so I think that kind of created a platform where it was okay to talk about, Where, as a matter of fact, now there's been there's been movies and stuff. Right. But the last movie I saw, I was with my girlfriend in the Philippines, and what was it? The Woman King.
Oh, right? Yeah, that new one.
And I don't remember right now because it wasn't. Oh, it was in. I think it was Dahomey. Anyway, the point was that I heard a couple references, and I was like, oh, yeah, pretty cool. So I just think, yes and no, right? There's certain topics that are still taboo and that you don't want to talk about because it's going to bring too many negative connotations and whatnot. But for the most part, at least it's tolerated and not looked down upon.
Correct.
I remember when it was almost like you would be shunned, back in the day.
To find out you were a practitioner.
Yeah. And there was a time when law enforcement was trained only. They didn't have any training out. Now, thank God, there's plenty of training and we have Ernesto Pichardo from the Church of the Lukumi Babaluaye that we took it to the Supreme Court and everything, blah, blah, blah. But before all of that, the only thing in law enforcement was that they all kind of considered it, if they saw anything that looked like paraphernalia from that faith, they were assuming there was criminal activity. And unfortunately, I'm very sad to say that, but because this was a religion that started from the very poor and grew everywhere else, right? You tend to have a lot of things happening in that socioeconomic background,
right.
and so it wasn't that they were right, but there was just a percentage of people that were involved, and that created, a bad rap and a bad reputation at that time.
That makes sense. That definitely makes sense. For me, it's interesting for me, right? Because the same experience, cuando las cosas, estaban malitas, or, when things weren't looking up, mom and dad always went to the cousin who used to wear this thing and
throw shells on the floor.
Yeah, and it
whatever.
was like, as a kid, I never knew what they were doing, and then I grew up a little bit, and I would ask questions to my cousin or this and that, and be like, oh, get ahead to, what's this? So what is this? How does this work? And I was always curious. However, my parents were always outsiders. They never initiated themselves in the religion. Obviously it's a big part of my roots, so I always felt a connection. And then it wasn't until I was a full-grown adult that I met you, and we started talking about it that it made sense for me. I was like, all right, I'm going to do this.
Well, it's funny. My family were kind of outsiders too, as many families are, right? And I would say now they're still very much outsiders, right? But as all families did, and if you think about it, that's the function of every faith, right? It's not just us. What makes our thing peculiar, funny, is the fact that there was this hush-hush thing. When somebody wasn't doing well, they would take them to, the santero or the babalao or un curandero, somebody that worked with herbs, un mosainita, whatever the case may be, right? Because they worked with herbs and they knew herbal remedies or whatever. But in the end, the function of faith is when things are going wrong, when things don't make sense or are beyond your level of cognition, something that you lean on, that you believe in, that is going to help you get over or get through, right? So it still was filling that same basic human need.
Right.
It's just that, it wasn't a traditional Judeo-Christian belief, even though it was mixed in with it, right?
Right. That's the whole. That's what makes us. That's why it's perfect for the Cuban culture, right? Because it's that mix of like the Spaniard and the African.
It's who we are. It's who we are.
You couldn't make it any more better.
Even our food, everything, right?
You couldn't. Yeah, it's like a poem. It fits hand in hand like a glove, definitely. So you start coming out of high school. You're involved in the religion. Are you already initiated by the time you leave to the military, or no?
So interesting. I don't know if you know this or not. I didn't come out of high school. I left high school.
Oh. Okay. All right.
So I was a high school drop. I was very rebellious in my teens, very nonconformist.
As most teens are.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of stuck with me throughout. I'm not good with authority. But Yeah, and actually that's a base for a lot of entrepreneurs, right?
Of course, right.
It's something that's really normal. But I left high school early. Now, the funny thing is, as soon as I left high school early, I was like, all right, how am I going to, how can I quickly remedy this situation or fix it from point A to point B? So then I got my GED. And so I actually had a high school diploma, quote unquote, before the class that I would have graduated from would have had a high school diploma. The thing is, it's funny. Throughout my life, there's a bunch of funny things that happen. Some of them were great experiences, and some of them were just really, really bad choices, but it still makes a good story. So yeah, I left school, and by the time that's happening, that's actually kind of when I'm starting to learn about this, even at a young age, I would have dreams sometimes, almost revelatory dreams. I mean, sort of, I would dream with something that didn't make sense, but then if I thought about it, it would make sense. Right. And it was usually on point, It's not like I got the heebie-jeebies or I convulse or none of that weird stuff. It wasn't any of that. It was just I'd have a dream or something, and so by the time that I had left school, I was already kind of getting involved, which is good because it actually kind of helped straighten me out a little bit because I was going down a bad path, right? And then I started getting into music, and music was me trying to find my place in the culture because up until then, I think I was just your regular Cuban-American kid, kind of half Spanish, half English. But I really wanted to get more in touch with my Cuban side. And the first time I ever heard a guaguancó in my life, which is an Afro-Cuban dance, and it's a drumming. I flipped. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And that led to a series of, and again, the more Afro-Cuban you get, well, it all ties back into the religious aspects, right? Yep. So it kind of all went together. And I started getting involved in music, and I was learning how to drum, and and a bunch of little events that don't seemingly have anything to do with each other. Kind of like a Stephen King book, where you start with a whole bunch of different stories of different characters, and somehow it kind of starts coming together. Right. So I start learning how to play, and then all of a sudden I meet people that live right where I live that are musicians, and then I'm getting invited to the club that they owned, and which was awesome because here I am, not old enough to be able to walk into a club, and I'm walking in there like Big Daddy Kane, being, it was awesome. It was awesome. I'm not even gonna lie. So anyway, but then I'm making friends, and then I'm learning how to play music. I don't even know how to play yet, and they're introducing me as a musician because that's, and before you know it, all of a sudden this band, which is a very, very well-known band in Miami, especially back in those days, they're going on a gig outside the country, and their conga player can't make it. And they need somebody to replace him really, really bad. And guess who they decide to ask to go with them?
Yours truly.
Yeah. So I had never even earned a dime playing music. I still didn't even really know how. I mean, I could carry a beat. I could get the job done, but it was definitely not at a professional level. Right. All of these people were professional musicians, right? Twice my age, amazing level of musicianship. But, out of necessity and the fact that they liked me and we got along, right? They're like, hey, we're going to Finland. You want to come with us? What? Yeah. So that started my musician career where, I traveled. From there on, it was all over the place. First, it was with them for a couple years, right? Many
As
years.
if the rest of your life isn't interesting enough. You've traveled to, what'd you say, 36 countries?
I think I'm like at 40-something now. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, don't get me wrong. There's still a bunch that I haven't gone to, and especially everything Asia was off of the map up until 2 years ago. Because I was always scared. You know, as I've gotten older, well, I've always been a big boy, but then I lose weight and I gain it, lose and get. But now that I'm older and bigger, right, I was like, man, that's such a long flight. I've been avoiding that like the plague. But I kind of got the hack for that now. So Asia's going to get knocked out real soon. I've already been there twice. And I got a lot more places to see. It's fun, man.
Yeah, traveling is, as you know, that's something I love doing. I've been to 11 countries now, and I definitely plan on going to check out Asia with you soon. I know the way you describe the Philippines it's amazing.
It's just life is meant to be lived.
For sure.
Right? And I always tell people the experiences beat the things every single time.
100%.
Every single time, you know, and prove it to yourself. Ask yourself, what did my parents get me when I was 12 years old? What did I get on my 15th birthday? What did I get on my 17th birthday? Unless you're one of those that was very lucky and they handed you the keys to a brand new Mercedes-Benz, right? You're never going to forget that. Remember, but other than that, you won't remember. But if you tell yourself, if I were to ask you right now, where was the last vacation you had with your parents?
Tampa. We went to a water park.
So it took you less than 3 seconds. And right now, while we're still speaking, you've got a ton of memories that are flowing through your brain. I'm telling you that the experiences beat the things every single time. And so we need to experience every single thing that we possibly can because we don't, you know, tomorrow's not promised. So
definitely
enjoy it.
I'm a big proponent of the experiences for sure. I feel better as a human when I don't blow my money on a bunch of material possessions that I'm not going to end up using anyway. And I use them to experience life. I'm there with you 100%. Costa Rica was an amazing experience. I've gone 3 times. You know, I love that place.
Yeah, I know.
Colombia was off the chain. You know, I tell people all the time, invest. That there's 3 forms of personal development that are just naturally develop you as a human being. There's entrepreneurship, which in itself is one of the best self-development courses you could ever take. There's fitness, right? If you're getting yourself fit and having the discipline and the drive and the hunger to get fit and actually getting it done, that's a huge self-development course. And traveling the world. Traveling the world gives you experiences and wisdom, and you learn from other cultures, and it's self-development on another level, and it's fun. And it's the experience is unforgettable. It's just a win-win.
It opens your mind, man. I mean, if you've never left your city, your state, your country, you only know what you know.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know.
100%.
And until you get out there and you experience it, you're like, wow, I didn't know people lived like this. I didn't know this could be done. I didn't know. And when you come back, you're a different person because you've got that other perspective that you would have never had.
You would have never had anyway, yeah. Like when you told me about, I've experienced it in my own right when I've been to countries. But for example, when you went to the Philippines and you learned how they cook their food and what city pertains to what and how they do this and how they do that. And then, you know, I was super surprised at how similar their culture is to us. How they eat carne puerco, you know, they eat pork just like Cubans, and
they call it lechon.
Lechon, just like us. Yeah, it's super cool. You know, and then coincidentally, the Philippines has a huge Spaniard descendants just because, you know, they were a colony of Spain for a long time. So yeah, traveling is
hundreds of years.
You're right.
Yeah.
Most of them have like Spanish names, right? Yeah.
Almost all of them, probably like 90% of them have Spanish names like you and I. And the funny thing is, again, the ones that are from there that have never left their country, they'll see me and they'll be like, oh, Lopez, are you half Filipino? And I'm like, no.
No, you're part Spaniard, buddy. We have the same ancestors. Yeah. That's funny. So, yeah, that's okay. So backtracking. So you finish. Did you finish the military and then go back to playing music?
So, you know, years into the music now, I really enjoyed myself, man. Too much. I knew that I needed a little bit of discipline in my life at that point because I was, you know, it's crazy. I'm so blessed. Like and by the way, what I'm about to say now, I've been saying since I was 26 years old. I always say, if I were to drop dead tomorrow, not that I want to drop dead tomorrow. I want to be a rock and be here as long as I possibly can. But if I were to drop dead tomorrow, I've lived several lives in one, right? So I don't regret any of that. That was some of the greatest times of my life. I saw so many places. I had so much fun. But eventually, it was a little too undisciplined, right? There was too much. So I told myself, I need to kind of grow up a little bit and find some discipline in my life. And so I said, I'll go in the Navy. And that's when I went in the Navy.
And you did 4 years, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. 93 to 97.
93 to 97. That's awesome. You told me, what was the story you told me about when you were where was it, Hawaii? No, not Hawaii. You told me a really funny story about like one of your commanding officers tried to pull a stunt and then...
Yeah, I'm not going to say that story now. only because I do sales, and just the other day, literally 2 days ago, I'm sitting there and the person I'm speaking with was also in the Navy, and we start talking. The person actually was familiar with the ship that I was on.
Wow.
And not only that, they ended up being friends with the commanding officer that I was talking about.
All right,
so this is too fresh, and we said we were going to keep in touch.
All right.
But let's just say that back then, that military, and it was already changing. It was already starting to change when I was there, but they still had and kind of allowed a work hard, play hard mentality. Okay. So even though it was discipline, right? You were disciplined, but you were still allowed to have a lot of fun, which kind of still followed the theme of everything else. And then after that, I got more in touch with the sales side. I had really avoided that for a long time.
That was actually going to be my next question. How did you transition
I'll
into
put it in.
sales?
I'll transition music and that at the same time,
cool.
Right? So since I was a little kid and my parents got divorced, my dad, God bless him, his idea of having fun was picking me up and taking me with him on appointments, right? So I really detested sales when I was a kid. Not so much because it was sales, but because it would keep me from doing fun stuff with my dad. Well, as I got older, I still didn't embrace it at this moment. It ended up being something I did when I didn't have anything else I could do. I could always pick up a sales job and sell just because I've been hearing it since I was a little kid all the time. I wasn't good at it because I didn't pay attention to it, but I wasn't bad because I had that background, you know, and my dad was a beast,
right?
You know? So that was kind of like how I would fall back into that, but music was still calling, you know, there was still and I come from a low to middle income family or middle to low income family, depends on how you put it. The point was we weren't really poor, like starving, but we weren't really middle class either. There were problems, I just never knew it. My mother, my grandmother were experts at hiding it. You know what I mean? So to me, it was perfect because my mom would save sometimes a year, 2 years, 3 years worth of money just to give me some kind of travel experience that would open my mind up. We'd go to Mexico or we went to Spain. But I mean, people thought we had more money than we had, and it was just her really being frugal as hell and finding packages and this and that. So that already woke up in me that desire to want to travel and explore. And what I found at an early age by mistake, because I already told you, somebody couldn't make it and they invited me when I didn't even know how to do it. I was like, damn, I can continue to travel and have all this fun. But I was a little more disciplined doing it at that point. Right. But, you know, so when I came back from the Navy, funny thing, I was on the water, and now I get back on the water again. I'm doing cruise ships. And so now I'm working in the cruise ship industry as a musician, playing with bands. Sometimes a duo, a trio, a quartet, a quintet, it didn't matter. We would make the band according to whatever the cruise ship needed. And because we weren't part of the cruise ship, we were hired out of Miami, we were considered guest entertainers, which meant we were practically passengers. We could, you know, get away with almost anything except fraternization. Anything else was allowed, right? So it was a lot of fun. And so I spent maybe another 5 or 6 years traveling the world and playing music, and in a more disciplined fashion, right? Because now I brought the military work ethic and everything with me. But eventually I made the move because I realized I wasn't making any money. And the little money that I was making, I was blowing immediately in beer and girls, right? But I was traveling, and that was some great experiences. But there came a time where I was like, all right, I think I need to grow up a little, Peter Pan syndrome's good enough.
Right.
So that's when we get into kind of the next stage in my life, which is when I start, picking up sales jobs, and I start wanting to I get a little bit of an interest in getting better at sales. And then I got involved.
Is this when you start picking up books and going to courses? And
Yeah, very lightly. So I would always, my dad, since my dad had all this stuff, I would just take his stuff. It would really piss him off. Like I stole his audio cassettes of Zig Ziglar. So I had heard Zig Ziglar. I had heard Anthony Robbins, So I had a little bit of it. It's just that it would get me bored. I'd fall asleep when I'd hear it because I wasn't interested in that, man.
Right.
It's like you and me, we're always talking about politics. I was just talking to somebody the other day. I was like, I used to fall asleep and make fun of people that were watching thing of politics. I was like, I didn't want to hear that.
But now it's a hot topic. And
Well, not only is it a hot topic, I mean, I think it's something that's very important for everybody. But when I was, I did not mature until a very late age. And a lot of the things that I should have taken seriously earlier, I didn't. I was just very lucky that I was blessed with all these experiences anyways that helped form me, right? So then I got into sales. I continued to get into sales. Eventually, I started wanting to open businesses, and network marketing kind of started piquing my interest. And then now you've got the personal development aspect that's coming in. I had a couple of businesses. Most of them failed, horribly, but they were great experiences. I learned that I loved working for myself, and if I could do that, I'd be happier than just about anything. So sometimes I'd work for my dad. Not that he had a business, he was a salesperson, but he was very, very successful, and he would produce. So sometimes he needed help in other things or in getting leads or this or that. So that kind of, I had a little bit of that going on.
Right.
And then kind of where everything really shifted was I had lived about a year and a half, maybe going on 2, in North Carolina. And I opened up a store in North Carolina. And I knew that it was going to take time to kind of build my base. I didn't know much about marketing. I knew how to sell, but I didn't know how to market.
Right.
But it didn't matter. I was still growing my base, and it was going. I had a relationship up there. That went to crap. And I just got angry and shut everything down, and I came to Miami without a dime to my name. I had literally lost everything I had. When I mean everything, car, everything that you could think of, I had lost. And I think you've heard me say this before, that I think every single person, every single successful man specifically, but everybody, and by man, I mean anybody, I mean women too, I'm just saying, every successful person should make it to the top and lose everything they got at least once.
And as insane as it sounds, I've been one of those people who's lost everything, so I know what you're talking about.
Because the character that you build, building it back, and
Man.
Once you've done that, now, depending on how good you are at making decisions, hopefully one time is enough. But some of us, it's happened more than once, right?
Hey.
But it doesn't matter anymore because you can bounce back.
Get it all back.
It's funny. Another thing I was just talking about today with someone is because I'm so optimistic, I always tend to think that things are going to happen much faster than it would normally take. So when I did that, I was like, 3 months, I'll be back. You don't know, man. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. It didn't take 3 months, man. It took probably a year and a half to really bounce back. But when I did, that's where my whole life shifted. So I came back to Miami with my tail between my legs, going back into my mom's house, not because I wanted to help my mom, not because I wanted to make her life better or to spend time with her. It was because I had no other choice. Like, here I am, grown-ass man, lost everything he had. So, it's a blow to the ego. It's a blow to the pocket. It's a blow to your sense of manhood. So you got to suck it up and do it. Now, on my way down, my buddy calls me up, and he says, Chris, you're going to go nuts, bro. Come to our place. We've got this beautiful 3-4 bedroom condo on Brickell. Beautiful view of the ocean. We got an extra car, man. And I was like, no, you're crazy, dude. No. We insisted. So for the first 3 months, now remember, I thought it was going to take me 3 months. So I figured, all right, whatever, bro. I'll coast for 3 months, and then by then I'll be swimming in cash. Here I am. I've lost every dime I have to my name. I have zero. I can't even rub 2 nickels together. My ex-wife, I'm talking to her, telling her the story. She's like, Chris, you're the luckiest guy I know. You don't have a pot to piss in. You're driving a freaking Lexus, living in Brickell, hanging out every night. How do you do this? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what I did.
And funny enough, what's the name of the building that you were living in?
Atlantis.
And the Atlantis is the penthouse suite that Frank Lopez has in the movie Scarface. So
at about the 3-month mark, though, I realized this was going to take longer than I was expecting.
Right.
So then I go with the original plan. I still go where I ended up because, one thing is hanging out with buddies for a while. They knew I was kind of down because I had split up with my old lady and I wasn't doing well and this and that. But I was like, no. I gotta start from the bottom up and get myself going. So here I am now in my parents' house. And you know how parents are, especially when they're not entrepreneurial.
Yeah, of
right?
course.
I'm thinking, she's going to drive me nuts, bro.
Yeah.
She's going to drive me nuts. I have to find something. I don't care. Because I was looking for something where I knew, hey, get off the ground running and start making some bread, and I'm good. But it got to a point where, like, I'll do anything. I'll do any job. I don't care. I just want to have a job so that, this person who raised me doesn't think that I'm a lazy bum. And I'm not. I'm very good at what I do. So I'm walking in the mall one day. And, I've worked for the government. I was in the
That's
Navy.
a whole other thing. You worked for Homeland Security. We haven't even touched that. Yeah.
I could do a movie, I think, at some point, right?
Seriously,
So anyway, I was thinking, wow, I saw Rosetta Stone cart, and I was like, languages, that's pretty cool. And that could add to my skills. If I've got to be in a shitty position and I've got to find a job that is whatever, and there's nothing wrong with that. It was a great job, but I'm just saying I was looking for jobs that were going to get me close to 6 figures or high enough to where I could bounce there. And, this was working at the mall for minimum wage, which back then was like $7 and change. I was destroyed. Ego was destroyed. But I thought, well, I can kill a couple of birds with one stone. Even if the bread's not there, I'll at least have something. I'm subsisting at least. And at the same time, I am upping my skills with languages, right? So I apply. Clearly, I got the job. And then I really started liking it because I really love languages, right? That's another thing that I love. So I started learning Persian and Russian. And
how many languages did you speak?
I got to a point where I spoke 6 languages. I don't anymore. I'm down to 3, right?
This guy wasn't impressive enough already.
But, I spoke Finnish because, remember, I spent some time in Finland, right?
Yeah.
And then the Russian and the Persian I was learning when I was in Rosetta Stone. And I had started learning Polish because I started dating this really hot Polish girl that I met, by the way, right when I was just leaving Brickell, going back to my old lady's house. Didn't have a pot to piss in. So here you go. You know the story. A girl meets a guy, and the guy says, hey, this isn't really me. You know, you don't know me. I'm not like this, but I just don't have a job right now. You're thinking, this guy's a bum, you know, this guy, who knows what else. So I met this Polish girl, and super hot. Like, not out of my league, but what I'm saying is just at that moment in life, you know, you're kind of all crushed or whatever, and you meet this chick who's like a knockout, right? So we became friends for many, many years only because of the fact that she played a very important role in my life, and it was that when no one else believed me, and I told her, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, and this is what I do, she believed me. And that was awesome because at that, you know, that's just one of those low moments in life. Anyway, so I learned a little Polish too. And clearly I started excelling in sales. And now I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to do sales, I've had it in my blood forever. Let's start taking this serious, right? I had already read Think and Grow Rich probably a year and a half before that, right? Like right before I opened my business, that's when I really got kind of exposed to Napoleon Hill. And Napoleon Hill was mentioned to me by when I had started that network marketing company, which I had a little fizzle and that was it. But again, now the personal development really starts kicking in.
Right.
Plus, I remember the stuff I was toying with when you were younger, right?
Yeah.
So it all starts coming back. And now I start taking sales seriously. And what happens? Well, what do you know? Top salesperson, you know, in the group in the mall. And then what do you know? Top salesperson in the city. And what do you know? Top salesperson in the state. And now I'm, you know, one of the top salespeople in the country. And so I'm starting to get attention. Now, before this, I'm already coming up with a bunch of ideas that'll make sales better. And I'm telling people this, but nobody's listening to me. You know how corporate world is, especially when you're at the bottom. Everybody wants to get recognition for these things, or they're just not going to mention it because they don't want to lose their job,
right,
or they don't want someone else shining. But now that I've got attention and I've got people at the top that are starting to, you know, want to talk to me and congratulate me, and I've got their ear, I'm starting to say, thank you so much, but you know what I was thinking? This is it. So finally one day, the regional manager comes, and he comes down to Florida, and I didn't get to meet him because nobody told me I was off that day. What a coincidence.
Yeah.
Right? But when I find out, I give the guy a call. I had to find his number first. Call him, and I went and met him at the airport before he left his flight. And that's when he knew I was hungry.
That's a scene in a movie.
Yeah. He knew I was hungry at that point. And so we started a relationship, and that was like my very first mentor, right? Who to this day, we still talk. And so then what happened? Well, I became manager, and then I became area manager. And so I worked my way up in that company, and it never stopped after that. Now here I am, you know, in control of many stores and many people. And then a cousin calls me one time. He says, hey, Chris, are you interested in making money? And I was like, I don't know what network marketing company you're doing. I'm not interested. But if you have food and beer there, I will show up out of respect for you. And I will get very excited and make sure that everyone else that's there gets involved. Fair enough? Yeah. And then you know the rest.
Yeah.
That's where we met. They actually, as soon as I heard what that company offered, it was what I considered a very sexy offering. I always said if I could see products and services instead of products, I would be interested, and that's where our our story begins. Yeah.
So I have a similar. I don't know if I ever told you this. I started direct sales straight out of high school. I was 18 years old, so I was a boy. I was a little boy when I started direct sales, network marketing, and that industry turned me into a man. I learned integrity. I learned keeping your word. I learned how to sell. I learned how to present. I learned how to speak to people. I learned how to carry myself. I learned how to be a confident person. I owe my life to sales, direct sales, network marketing. It was the best business school, I would say, I've ever experienced. And it's opened so many doors for me. I mean, you're my godfather. I met you in network marketing, right? All of my close friends, my close circle now, I met in direct sales. I mean, I wouldn't have written this book if it wasn't for that industry. I could tell you, I wouldn't be the man I am today. I wouldn't.
And not only that, but we had a very special environment in that company.
We did.
We were blessed. The leadership was really, really cool. The organization was cool.
Definitely.
The training was amazing. So I had already started my personal development before I got there, but all that did was amplify it so much more.
Right.
And so both of us, we're still in touch with so many of our friends from there. We've done business with them. We've done other side businesses and hustles with them. So we always refer to it kind of like the pedigree. We come from that school, and everybody that we know from there has become highly successful in whatever other ventures they've done.
Anyone who's applying what they learned.
Hats off to that. Whatever may have happened afterwards and how that is nothing compared to what it did to each of us professionally and personally
110%.
That helped us, kind of.
I mean, literally, there's not one person I think of that's doing went into entrepreneurship for themselves or went into sales. Jeff is kicking butt at Cadillac. I have a friend of mine, Wilfredo, who's going to be on the podcast soon. He went out and started a merchant services company. He's doing great. My story. Your story. You're kicking ass in timeshare, which we haven't even got into, and it's crazy how big of an impact it had even after the company fell apart and everything, because I've never seen something where as a business it just wasn't good, but as a school it was fantastic.
It was phenomenal.
And it impacted so many people. It really did. So definitely. Like I said, I can't say enough good things about it. It taught me everything, the base for. I'm the number one guy at Cadillac now. I mean, right? And it's big. I apply everything I learned. It's a blessing. It was definitely, and then I met you, and the rest is history. So Padrino, this was a lot of fun. So what I usually wrap up the episode by asking a couple questions. So I mean, I know most of these, but for the audience, of course, what inspires you?
This is going to be a weird answer for you. I think over the years it's changed a lot. I used to chase money a lot. That doesn't inspire me. I mean, nothing wrong with it. I like making it, but it goes back to that experience conversation that we had. I think that the basic unit in life is the family. So everything that has to do with progressing that family and moving those next generations forward and inspiring those next generations forward is kind of what inspires me. That and the experiences, so for example, if you don't have a family or it's the experiences that make you the person that will have a family or that will move forward or whatever. Next generation. That's where kind of legacy inspires me right now.
It's a big part of it for me, for sure. We've had this conversation already. My 20s were amazing. I turned 30 a couple months ago. I had a lot of experiences in my 20s. I've traveled the world, and I've been doing okay in my social life with females, stuff like that. And after having had a lot of fun and having a lot of experiences, I'm ready to the family portion of my life. I think I'm ready for it. Ready to find some good young girl and settle down, have some.
Now
kids.
This was a historic moment. I've been waiting to hear you say that.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right.
I'm not like looking for it. It's something I would like.
Right.
Yeah,
You're not hanging up the gloves yet.
No. However, if an opportunity presents itself and it's the ripe, the mango is ripe, then I'm gonna pluck it. So yeah, I'd like to have a couple kids and get married and get on to the next phase of life. So,
awesome.
Definitely. I can feel you on the legacy. That motivates me too. Having kids and especially having a niece and nephew now, that's really cool. We're playing games with them, going to visit them, and being a part of their lives. And then seeing my mom, that's a grandmother now, thinking wow, the day I'm a grandfather. So.
And I'll add another thing to it that has to do with the legacy. So how I said, well, I mean, I like making money, but it doesn't motivate me. But however, I like helping other people make money. I like helping people. So even like when I'm sales training, right? As a sales trainer, I like getting people that have never made six figures in their life and teach them or help them get to a point where they're making six figures, because that's life-changing.
Definitely.
And that's a skill that'll never go away.
That you can
right?
apply anywhere.
So,
Yeah.
so I like the fact of helping other people do that.
Definitely. So that's why I tell some people approach me and when I need to make more money, I need to change in my life. I tell them, get into sales. Get into sales. You're going to develop yourself as a human being. You're going to become another you that you're never going to recognize. You're going to build a skill you're going to be able to take anywhere in the world and be able to make money. You're going to become recognized. There's big recognition in becoming a top salesman in the world. And the benefits far outweigh the risks.
Well, you're not the only one that says that. Andrew Tate says that.
Right.
You know, Robert Kiyosaki says that.
Yeah.
Grant Cardone says that.
I mean,
they all started like that. All of them. From nothing. Nothing.
Patrick Bet David. I mean, the list goes on
Yeah.
of successful people that say get into sales. So, next question. What's next for you?
So, that's a good question. I've been dabbling in Forex now for probably about 3 years. Decently good at it, you know. And what I mean by that is that I'm better than the average person, but nowhere near where I need to be or where I want to be.
Right.
It doesn't replace my income in any way, shape, or form yet. You know, it's not like I have to worry about losing tons of money or, you know, but that story's there. That's another story.
Right.
I got that part,
Right.
But it's not to the point either where, you know, I'm making it rain and it's not like that. But the whole next stage of my life is based on, because it's legacy and because it's family, it's how much money could I possibly make in the least amount of time. So it's all about buying my time back so that I could spend the majority of my time enjoying these experiences, right? I don't want to spend my life working. Clearly, we have to work. You have to make money. You know, if you are a man in society right now and you're in charge of a family or you are taking care of a family, it should be on your shoulders and you should take that responsibility on your shoulders to go out there and
provide, of course.
And provide, right? And over-provide, actually, right? So that the rest of the family can focus on whatever it is that they're focusing on, if it's kids, it's studies, whatever, right? But I also want, so I still have that drive, clearly, but I want to be able to buy my time back and now have several streams of income, some passive, some non-passive, that are bringing in this cash so that I'm still putting in some work, but the majority of what I'm doing is kind of just like overlooking it and then enjoying the travel and going here and going there and traveling Southeast Asia and you know, just enjoying life, man. That's what it's about.
And it goes back to the sales topic. It's the only career I know where it allows you to make this amount of money so you can be like, all right, now I can save, now I can invest. Let me buy some real estate. Let me do this. And then after 5-6 years of selling and doing this job, if you put your money in the right places, you'll never have to do it again.
And again, I'm sure everybody's heard it a million times, but multiple streams. You know, now here we are coming into 2023. It's no... what's the word I'm looking for? It's no surprise that we're going into a recession, right? And anybody that knows has been saying that you're not, if you think in 2022, then hold my beer, because 2023 is going to come pretty hard, right? So it's time to kind of reassess and evaluate where you are and, you know, how is my business / job going to be affected by this? Think forward a little bit, right? And see, because everything's going to get affected, but how is it going to get affected? And maybe look at having some multiple streams of income so that if one gets affected a little bit, well, the other one replaces what that affected. Or if one gets completely shut out, you have, and then guess what? When it bounces back, now you've got 3-4 streams of income that are bringing it in, and you can do other stuff.
If there was ever a time to get financially educated, it's right now.
Yeah.
Recessions are wake-up calls, and the people who provide no value to society, if they're living a high lifestyle, it's going to get chopped down, and it's going to bring you back to reality. Like, listen, you're not bringing any value to the marketplace. You need to reassess what you're doing with your life, bring some value to the marketplace, and then once you do that, you'll be recession-proof. You know, so get financially educated. Everybody knows I'm a big proponent of that. Now's the time to do it. Develop yourself. If there's ever a time to develop yourself, it's in a recession. Take the course. Get the license. You know, read the book. Go to the conference. Do what you have to do to learn the skill that's going to make you the money, and you're going to be able to build that value to make the money you want to make.
Guys,
so,
it's on YouTube for free. You can learn
Bro.
anything you want to learn on YouTube.
So did I tell you that I haven't told you. I bought the masterclass. I told you I was going to buy masterclass, right?
You sent me a text showing like that you had
The receipt, yeah.
of something of masterclass, but we never got into what the hell the masterclass was.
So I bought it's $100. I thought you paid $180 for the year to get access to one course. You pay $180 for the year to get access to all of them.
Oh my gosh!
And you have, in my case, the Duffer Brothers who wrote Stranger Things. You have a full course whenever you want. Rewind it, fast forward it, whatever. You have people like Timberland teaching beat making, Nas teaching you how to rap, Alicia Keys teaching you how to sing, R.L. Grimes teaching you how to write children's books. Martin Scorsese teaching you how to direct a film. I mean, there's no excuse nowadays.
I believe Chris DeVos as well, teaching you how to negotiate.
It's insane. $180 for the year. Get out of here. There's no excuse, guys. There really isn't. Get out there. Now's the time to make it happen. So the last question. What's your dream?
In terms of?
Open-ended. What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Actually, the first thing that comes to mind is exactly what we were just talking about, right? Getting to that point where my streams of income. So dream. Let's take it a step further.
Yeah.
Get to the point where those streams of income have now matured in a way where I don't have to spend time at all working for anybody. It's simply just overlooking what I've got going on. You know, I know several people that are Forex traders that are amazing. They make tons of cash. Now, I'm not talking about the Instagram, Ferrari laden, and power to them. You know, if they've got enough money to be able to buy the car, and it was really bought by the Forex money and not by the course on how to Forex, because that's a whole other topic.
We have a whole bunch of gurus on social media now. That's a whole
power to you. Then power to you.
Yeah.
But
if you're a guru and you don't know how to do what you're trying to teach other people, that's just
scammy.
Yeah.
That's scammy. That's good. Then you're not a Forex trader. You're not a guru. You're an internet marketer and a fake at that, right?
Definitely.
But there are many people trading, even within the Forex community, that make sizable amounts of money professionally because they learned the skill. It's a skill. Like anything else in life. It's a skill. And like anything else in life, you're not going to learn it in 3 months.
100%.
So, we all, including myself, got attracted to it under the lure of big money.
Right.
Right. But you soon find out that's not the case, and then you either lose everything you have and give up and leave, or you fall in love with the process, and just like any other skill that takes years to learn, you put in the time and, the hair pulling moments and the downs and the ups, and you come out of it a better person and you come out of it a professional that can now make a living out of that, right?
And that's a great way to end the podcast. That on that note, skills are recession-proof. They can not be taken away by bankruptcy. They cannot be taken away by prison. They cannot be taken away by divorce. They cannot be taken away by anything. Once you acquire these skills, these are skills that follow you around for life. Whether it's sales, entrepreneurship, being a plumber, you name it. Whatever it is that you think you could do and it is your dream to accomplish, acquire that skill, chase it with all you got, and once you have that skill, It can never be taken away, and you can apply it anywhere in the world. It's amazing. I love it. Padrino, we're family. Te quiero. This was a lot of fun. We'll do this again in the future.
Yeah, we'll definitely do it again.
For sure. So plug in. How can people connect with you?
So I've got a YouTube channel, which happens to be about trading and traveling. Now, remember what I said, guys, though. I'm not a pro, right? This is my journey in becoming a professional trader. I'm not a professional trader, but I love traveling and trading, and it's just kind of fun. It's CeeLo, C-E-E-L-O, CeeLo, the Traveling Trader. It's on YouTube. I will see you guys there.
Instagram, TikTok?
Instagram, TikTok, same thing. Same name, everything. CeeLo, the Traveling Trader.
Padrino, thank you.
All right.
As always, guys, push it to the limit. The world is yours. If you're not chasing a dream, life is meaningless. Till the next one.
I've been out here hustling all my life. Every day we get into it. Really out here in these streets. That's day and night. Like there's nothing to it. When I was going through it, dog, I never got your call. I never asked for nothing, no. But now I want it all. Promise I'ma do it. Came from rags to riches, rags to riches. Came from rags to riches, rags to riches. Came from rags.